Yeah, but really, I mean, that's what people should do. When their kids are not, when they have these asthma problems, they ought to be going to an allergist and get tested, because that's gonna have an impact. I mean, to me, that's dealing with the problem, so you don't have to use an inhaler or take medications, because you're going to take something which is going to build up that antibiotics. Yeah, my wife's doing it now. Yeah.
She can pump me once a week.
Yeah. Well, Vicki goes once a week to Dr. Boz's office here in Visalia, and it's made a big difference for her.
I did it for about 2 years. Injections for about 2 years.
Well, my youngest son did that because he was sick all the time, and we did that for a long time.
I think the District 2 supervisors probably don't have the cars ahead of her on the freeway right now.
Clear drumming?
Not yet. I can stay there and keep the door open if you want.
Put a stick of wood in there.
Get that rally flag going.
I started to reach for money. I forgot my phone's at home.
Was she there?
Well, if she went, she would have gotten trouble. That's why I was trying to warn you guys about doing it. Well, it'd be nice if we heard from her, so we knew. Connie.
And the CEO.
Oh, I hear her voice.
I apologize. We did that in the family.
Well, could you do that publicly?
My sister's she's a legal guardian for one of the court. She's about 78 years old. So of course they've all fallen apart. Thanks, Michelle.
Good morning. Could you join me in Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll begin this morning with item 1. Lisa.
Place to start.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Lisa Strongen, and I'm the chair of the Mental Health Board of Tulare County. And I understand we're getting a proclamation today.
Yes.
Is that right? And I'd like to introduce the co-chair of the board, which is Dr. Ralph Nelson, who's beside me. Good morning.
Morning, Dr. Nelson.
Want me to say a few words first?
Yes.
Okay. I'm new to this. I apologize. I think simply put, we all take mental health, as it were, for granted. We all believe we have mental health and we're blessed with it. And when those moments come that we might doubt the mental health in ourselves or others, generally speaking, want to push those doubts aside as quickly as possible. We expect in our society that everybody is responsible for their actions. And therefore, when these more subtle signs of mental illness or mental unrest show up in our daily lives, in our work, our colleagues, our friends, our family members, we most often think that it's probably not a serious issue. It's probably that their behavior is more a result of their making poor choices in life. But these subtle signs of problems are usually ignored, unfortunately, and therefore untreated in our society early on. And the costs of this mistreatment or lack of treatment is actually in the billions. What does that mean for us as a society and for us as a county is that we don't catch these problems early on, the behavior issues that come from mental health problems impact us all through, from school on to certainly the criminal justice system, which I'm very aware of. And we attach then a stigma to people who have mental health problems. The stigma and our own ignorance of the early signs, what to do, the shame that's involved, the lack of information, really multiply to the point where we feel the impact as a society on a daily basis. So I want to thank this board for making mental health a public issue, a public concern, and certainly with signifying this month, especially, we should become educated, aware, and treat people with compassion and not make them ashamed of having a problem. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ralph Nelson. I'm a family member, and I'm president of NAMI, California, and my wife is president of NAMI, Tulare County. We have a son who's 30 years old. For the last year, he has been homeless. He's been traveling around California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and ended up in Fort Collins, Colorado about 4 weeks ago. He has now been arrested for a false bomb threat against a hospital and is in the Pueblo State Hospital in Colorado. Mental illness can be a very serious illness. It's not simply depression because your grandmother died and you'll get over it in a week or two. It can be a lifetime illness. It can also be an illness that can go into remission, and you can have many years of productive life if treated appropriately. Approximately 1 out of 4 families will be affected with serious mental illness during their lifetime. This means that approximately 80 million people in the United States will be affected by mental illness over their family's lifetime. This is either in the past, in the present, or in the future. Persons with mental illness have a 15-year shorter lifespan because of their mental illness, because of the poor care they get, because they don't know how to take care of themselves, and there aren't appropriate medicines still on the shelves, even though there are newer medicines that are very helpful. Because of their disability, many are living and will live in poverty for most of their life or become homeless. However, in California, we can thank the voters that they knew that improved services were needed for the mentally ill and their families. Prop 63, or the Mental Health Services Act, will finance projects in every county to transform the mental health system, which the President's Freedom Commission stated is in disarray. Thank you.
On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I'd like to give this proclamation declaring May Health Awareness Month in Tulare County. There are a couple items in this proclamation that I'd like to point out. One is that 50% of students ages 14 and older with mental illness drop out of high school. Another one, which is really staggering, is 70% of the youth involved in state and local juvenile justice system suffer from mental illness. So this has a tremendous impact on our county when when we know that over 60% of our residents in Tulare County are under the age of 27. So we really thank the Mental Health Board, Advisory Board, and Health and Human Services, and you're doing a very good job on behalf of the board. Is Tim Shockley here? Yes. Good. Well, today is honoring Tim's retirement from the being the executive director of the Housing Authority of Tulare County, but he's not really retiring. He says he's going to devote some time on the farm. And being a farmer, you never retire until they throw dirt on you. Tim, a lot of people are confused, but the Tulare County the Authority of Housing Authority of Tulare County is actually a state agency. And Tim's worked here for 27 years, and he's done an excellent job. The agency administers nearly 5,000 units for families, for seniors, and the disabled. During the time that Tim's been with us, he has done a lot of other activities given his time, let's say, to the Kauai Management Company, the Kingsco Development Corporation, the California Housing Working Authority. He is the past president. He's been a leader in his field for many years. And with that, I'd like to present you with the highest honor that we have in our county, Tim. And I think probably the main thing that Tim's been known for is his ability to work with the county. He's been a very pleasant person to work with. And we'd like to congratulate you and thank you for the 27 years.
Well, I appreciate that very much. This is probably the first time I've ever appeared before your board and haven't asked for money. And I'm sure you can appreciate that. We have had a great relationship with the County of Tulare over many years. We've built many projects and been involved in lots of activities. And my board has always been proud to be associated with Tulare County and the support that we've had from your staff and this board. I'd like to take this opportunity, if I can, to introduce you to the new Executive Director of the Tulare County Housing Authority, effective today, Ken Kugler. Ken, would you stand? Ken's been with the Housing Authority for some time now and was one of my deputies, and after some soul searching on the part of the board, they decided they had the best man locally, and I totally concur. So I'll let Ken say a couple of words, but thank you very much for this.
Good morning. Looking forward to the challenge and continuing the work that the Housing Authority has done here, and excited about the new things that are coming up. And hopefully when I come before you again, that we will continue with the relationship we've had in the past, and you guys will continue to bless us with your support. So,
Well, welcome.
thank you.
Congratulations. Mr. Lewis? Oh, excuse me.
Sorry, he's gone now.
I must need to be somewhere.
Good morning, Board. I'm Brian Lewis, County Librarian. I know that wearing this shirt tarnishes my reputation as the Beau Bremel of the county, but it is a nice shirt, and it's promoting our summer reading program, and we do have some for you folks, and we'll be asking you to wear them when you can to promote our summer reading program. Our summer reading program is designed for really two reasons. Number one, it's to inspire young children to read and parents to read to their children. And number two, during the summertime, when school-aged children are out of school, they oftentimes lose their abilities to read if they're not reading during the summer. So this is to inspire them to continue reading, so that not only will they keep their skills up, but their skills will actually be improved by the time they get back into school and they'll be ready to go. We anticipate that this summer will be 8,000 children will be coming to our programs, and we anticipate that 2,500 children will finish the program, sign up and finish the complete program. We have professional storytellers, puppeteers, actors, and clowns, performing for the children as well as our own staff. This summer's theme is Get a Clue at Your Library. Now, I've been working in libraries for 38 years, and I'm daily reminded by my wife that I don't have a clue. So maybe this will help me out this summer. So I'd like to thank you for always helping us with the summer reading program and recognizing it, and please wear your shirts in good health and promote our program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to take up the consent calendar at this point in time. We need to pull item 13 and item 14. Are there any other items? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Motion approves consent calendar 5 through 26, pulling 13 and 14.
Second.
Cast your vote. The vote is unanimous approval. We'll take item 13. The reason we're taking it separately is Supervisor Cox serves on the first 5 board.
Motion to approve item 13. That's the only item, right? 13 involves item 13.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Please cast your vote.
Somebody need to vote?
Okay.
Aye.
Vote is a unanimous approval. Thank you. Item 14. Good morning, Mr. Bullock.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Item 14 is a request from the Homeland Security Unit to acquire license plate reader units that we would be installing on 12 vehicles in Tulare County. We'd be participating. This proposal was put together in cooperation with the Law Enforcement Chiefs Association and our Sheriff's Department. And I know you probably can't see from there, so I'll ask the clerk if she can pass it around. Actually, this is some very, very up-to-date technology that we'll be acquiring that allows the police cars to be equipped with cameras and scanning equipment that will do both front and back scanning of license plates in cars in front of them and back of them. It does not require the officer to call in a license plate. The scan will automatically do that and report to the officer that's in the unit whether this is a stolen car, a stolen plate, or an out-of-date registration. And it's been found to be extremely effective. It's being used already in Santa Clara County has acquired a number of these. And actually, our county, we're successful in acquiring these using our Homeland Security monies. In fact, it's when this item was agendized, we've been getting calls from a number of other counties. How were you able to do that? Can you tell us how to do that? Because they wanted to make sure that they could use their Homeland Security monies in a similar fashion, and we were able to get approval. And so we'd like to get it passed before the state hears that we're doing it. And, but I think one of the reasons there was a concern raised is whether or not we could do a bid waiver, and that wasn't in my original request on the resolution. So we've modified the resolution, given that modification to the clerk this morning. We'd like to move forward and acquire the 12 units that would allow our law enforcement people to have the most up-to-date equipment available. So, any questions?
I have a question. This, of course, is for the municipalities. We're not doing anything for the sheriff's office.
There'll be 2 cars equipped in the sheriff, 2 in Visalia and 2 in Porterville, and then all the other cities will get 1. And it's my understanding in talking to our staff this morning that if there's a rash of stolen vehicles in, say, Porterville, that we would mobilize maybe 2 or 3 of the vehicles from the other municipalities to put on the road in those areas. And it's also very effective in states and areas where there's amber alerts, because this will automatically, again, do license plate scanning. So,
well, that was my other question, Ray, was do we know, I mean, because it would seem to me that this would be a great project in tandem with the California Highway Patrol, given the 99 that runs through our county and various state highways and the areas they patrol, are they using this technology? I noticed that in this they're talking about, I forget which state it was, Virginia, someplace where they're doing it, and I'm just curious, do we know whether the CHP is doing this as well?
I can find that out. I know of other counties that are doing it, but I can't speak to the CHP, but clearly there's some value because of the effect.
Huge. I mean, to me, that's where the greater value would even be because of the traffic up and down to 99.
Right.
Thanks. Good program.
I have a quick question, if I may, Mr. Chair. There's got to be a brain somewhere. Do these all talk to a single brain unit? Are they a unit unto themselves that, because you're going to have some kind of, communication with the brain that's in Sacramento?
It's my understanding that there's a local, like a repeater that communicates to the DMV, and so that the cars that are here locally will communicate to a point that has real-time communication with the state DMV. Now, again, I'm about as ignorant as I come with the technology piece, but they work. That's all I've been assured.
Did Mr. Cox say there was a brain in Sacramento? I was curious.
I retract my statement.
So we're excited to move forward.
It's very interesting technology. Just it's got to talk back and forth to something somewhere, and I just wondered if there was going to be a single unit in the county, or if these units had the capability to communicate directly to the SEPs in Sacramento.
I can get the final word on that, but I know that there is a connection direct to or into DMV, whether it comes through a repeater here locally and then up, or if it's direct. I'll have to get research on that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Cast your vote. Okay, the vote is, the motion is approved unanimously. Okay, let's move to untimed item 27.
Good morning. Brian Summers, Capital Projects. For your board this morning is the long-awaited request to award the construction contract for the Visalia Library Expansion and Renovation Project. On February 6, 2007, your board authorized the advertisement for bids for the project. Bids from 4 firms were received, as summarized in the agenda item, and opened on March 29, 2007. The low bid was submitted by Seals Bealey General Contractors in the amount of $4,789,000. Following the bid opening, a letter protesting the bid was received from Dwight Nelson of Lewis C. Nelson & Sons, Incorporated. The basis of the protest revolved around the subcontractor list submitted by Seals Bealey, and this is a required component of the project specifications. Staff reviewed the allegations with County Counsel, and with the exception of a minor clerical error, found them to be without merit. Based on the review, it is my recommendation and request that your board take the following action. Find that the Seals Bealey bid contained minor clerical errors, but was substantially responsive to the county's bidding requirements. Waive the clerical errors and deny the protest of Lewis C. Nelson & Sons, Incorporated. Award the bid to the lowest responsible bidder, Seals Bealey General Contractors, and authorize the chairman to sign the construction documents upon approval list of form by County Council. Once awarded, construction is expected to begin on or after May 22, 2007, and construction duration is estimated at 360 days. And I will be happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions? Is there anyone wanting to respond to this item in the audience?
Mr. Chair, I inspected the documents yesterday. I'm very familiar with the documents, and I'm completely confident that what's being recommended here is totally appropriate, and that the bidder was responsive to our to our bid document, so I would make the motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded, cast your vote. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now, what happens to all that plywood?
Oh, that's a, you need plywood somewhere.
You need some campaign signs or something, Supervisor Wood?
I'm not going there.
Okay, we'll move to item 28, the fire department. Morning, Chief.
Morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ed Riston, CAL FIRE Tulare Unit Chief and your appointed County Fire Warden. I'm here today requesting your approval of an agreement to donate used fire safety equipment to the CAL FIRE Chiefs Bomberos Association. Tulare County has a long history of cooperating with the Bomberos section and has provided quite a bit of used fire equipment over the years. It is no longer, the equipment is no longer usable in California. Some of it does not meet NFPA standards. However, by donating it to the Bomberos section, they're able to make great use of it in Mexico, where they have, in some cases, no personal protective gear. As mentioned here, tying to the strategic business plan, basically we're preventing one stateside load of equipment to go to the landfill, which is what would happen. So this is an excellent program with a long history, and I would recommend that you approve the agreement to donate this equipment to the Cal Fire Chiefs Association Bombero section.
Are any questions?
Just one, I guess, Mr. Chairman. Chief, does this Bombero section, is that distributed nationwide through Mexico, or is there a particular state, or how does that work, do you know?
They work with various departments down there, and it goes throughout Mexico. I know people that have actually been on vacation down there have visited fire stations, and there happened to be a Tulare County code hanging in there, and they were very proud of it. So it's distributed throughout to various departments.
If there's no other questions, I'd move approval.
Seems like a much better use than a landfill. that's for
Absolutely.
sure.
There's been a motion?
Second.
Please cast your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item.
The second item is a request to donate a used fire engine to our ranch in the Sequoias at Johnsondale. During my previous tenure, we attempted several times to work with the R Ranch folks and get a volunteer fire company up there. Because of the turnover, it was very difficult to maintain certification and training for those folks. They currently have no on-site fire protection, and members of the association and the board came to us recognizing that we had a used 1976 fire engine. That's a 76 chassis. It has a 1950s fire buildup on it.
Sounds like a classic.
Restore the fire truck.
That piece of equipment is no longer serviceable for first line or reserve use in Tulare County Fire Department. Our ranch has stepped forward and wants to create a private fire brigade and take care of themselves. They are taxpayers in Tulare County, and they're willing to step forward. I think that this would be a great use for this piece of apparatus on a limited need on their property at our ranch, and they're stepping forward to help themselves. So my recommendation would be to approve the request to donate the engine to our ranch.
Chairman, in the Air District vernacular, this would be considered a gross polluter. So I'm hoping this is above 3,000 feet where we don't have the inversion layer problems and it'll just escape. Where is the R Ranch, by the way?
It's up beyond, it's right as you head down towards Johnsondale.
Okay.
Backside.
Just in the Kern River Canyon, about 20 miles north of Lake Isabella.
I think I just want to state that this item and the item before it gives me great pleasure that we're able to do this and have people step up that have needs for our equipment that we've used for all these years. And, you know, I really appreciate the opportunity to transfer this equipment and property to people that can really use it.
If I could add one final comment, I forgot to mention, but this has been in complete cooperation and support of the staff of your new Tulare County Fire Department also. They're 100% behind these moves, so it's not unilateral.
Yeah, I've been in contact with those folks up there, and they're very concerned because they were so close to that McNally fire, and that made them very, very aware of the situation they're in up there. So this has got to be a win-win situation for Tulare County.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's like a motion.
I make a motion to approve item
second.
29.
Okay, moved and seconded. Cast your vote.
Supervisor Worthley said that anything from the 1950s is a classic, so. Fine.
Motion carries unanimously.
Happy second.
And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
there are a couple of us here who were before 1950.
I was.
Thanks, Chief. Thank you, Chief.
I'd rather be a classic than a neo-classic.
Okay, moving back to item 4, our timed item for 9:30. Good morning.
I'm Roger Hunt, Assistant RMA Director, in charge of Administrative Services. I'm here to present the item regarding a public hearing for adjustments, fee adjustments to the Planning and Development Fee Schedule. Even though it's referred to as the Planning and Development Fee Schedule, it actually incorporates fees not only from the planning and development portions of RMA, but also the engineering section, and also fees from the assessor, from environmental health, and from county fire. And the fee adjustments that are recommended do not include anything from the assessor's office. They did not request a change this year. I have, I believe, in the audience representatives from county fire and environmental health that can speak to any questions regarding their fee increases. We're requesting that your board conduct the public hearing to consider the fee adjustments, and at the conclusion that you approve the fees. I do want to point out that despite what the agenda item says, that regarding the auditor reviewing the methodology, I failed to give them an opportunity to do that. We've had a discussion with the auditor, and we're recommending that you go ahead and conduct the public hearing and approve the fees subject to their review. And with that, we also would like that the fee adjustments be effective July 1st. With that, if you have any questions.
Questions?
I was just curious, Roger, I know this is a public hearing, but sometimes public hearings are poorly attended. I'm just curious, are these vetted like with the EIA? But
it's now the Builders Home Association,
yes.
And we did, because they had asked to be notified, we notified them. We also sent them a copy of the agenda item. I spoke with Bob Keenan, made sure that he had received it, and have not heard anything from them.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Seeing no one, close the public hearing. Bring the item back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, this appears to be one small clerical error.
Okay.
I can't escape my former life as a proofreader. But I'm sure it just was an oversight, so it's just a little number.
Where is it?
I believe it's on final parcel map, unless I'm misreading it. I'm sorry, it's on page 4 of 15. It'll be 968 across the...
The current fee?
Or is the 100% not correct?
Well, because it's only a slight increase from 964 to 968,
Okay.
it ended up showing 100%. We have a few that are like that.
I'm sorry, I'm possessed, and it's what I do.
Mr. Chair, if I can point out, some fees, not all fees are increasing, some of the fees are decreasing, some of them by as much as half, so I appreciate this methodology as you go through here and look at what it actually costs us to provide the services and then adjust those fees accordingly, so I'm in total support of this, and I appreciated several of them, even though some were only a 2 or 3% drop, but they did drop because of, watching that. I appreciate that. Makes a difference.
Are there any other questions?
None. I move approval, approve this subject to review by the auditor effective July 1.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Cast your vote. Vote is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I just needed to prove that I actually read the agenda item, Mr. Chairman.
So noted.
Bill always says he's the numbers guy, so.
I didn't catch it. I looked at it.
Okay, we'll move to item 30, which everybody's been waiting for.
Bated breath.
But then there are a lot of people that left. I thought they were all here for this report.
Yeah, that was terrible losing the audience that quick. Let me fire this up here.
Go home. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This is the presentation of, my name is Gary Kunkel. I'm the Ag Commissioner. Our office is at 4437 South Laspina in Tulare. This is one of the things that we look forward to every year, the presentation of the annual crop report. You notice we always feature something on it. This year's cover features kiwi fruit. There's actually a curse associated with this. In 2004, we did cherries. They got split early last year. And then in 2005, we put cattle on it, and I remember what happened to them in July. So let's hope that we break that cycle. But I actually did have a grower come up to me and point that out. So what I actually said to him was, give me static, I'll put your commodity on the cover. I'll cut right to the chase. Before I do that, I want to emphasize a couple of things. One is the figures are just gross values. We don't make any attempt at all to represent net profit. In fact, we can report these figures. Everybody in the county could be losing money. They could be making a lot of money, too. It doesn't matter. We only report the gross, not the cost of any of the inputs. And, of course, energy and fuel and so forth, now those things are very high. I want to thank the producers and processors. We get this information from packers and shippers and other people throughout the county. In the case of citrus, for example, we visit more than 50 different citrus packers, and they're all very good to share data with us. I also want to thank Melinda Lancaster. Melinda's in the audience. She actually put this together. So, Melinda, raise your hand so I can see who you are. That's the person right there that did all the hard work for this. Those of you that have been around for a while have heard me describe this as like doing your income tax from about December until this time of year. It's very much a chore. I'd like to thank County Duplicating, too, Art Areola and the people at RMA did a superb job putting this together. We've used them for several years. Prior to that, we used a private outfit. And so bringing it into County Duplicating has done a couple things. It's saved a lot of money, and we get a super quality from their staff. So I want to thank them. I was asked one time, since we don't represent net profit, what good is it? Why do we do it? Well, one of the reasons that we do it is it's required by law. And so I don't want to be guilty of not doing it. But the more important reason is that it's used by legislatures, policymakers, grower organizations. It's been used by insurance companies as the basis for a settlement. News media get it. I know all of you use it for a variety of things. We produce about 2,500 copies, and at the end of the year, sometimes we actually have to deny distribution of those copies because we like to keep 4 or 5 for archive. But they are very widely circulated. This is the moment we've all been waiting for, I suppose. Let this fill in. But we just threw up a few years of value here, and I'll talk to you in just a second about where we stand. I like the way this kind of adds to the suspense.
Some sort of cheated and looked at the back.
You see the value for 2006 was $3,872,059,700. That's a drop. That's a drop of 11%. It's $491 million less than last year. It's the first year in 3 years that we've been below the $4 billion mark. The 11% reduction is large, but we've had reductions of that kind in the past. It's similar to the reduction we saw following the December 90 freeze, which all of us will remember. I can tell you that I've spoken with Fresno, typically the number 1 county, and with Monterey, who's closely on our heels in number 3. I honestly don't know that we're going to be in second place, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were. Most of this reduction, or much of it, was because of reduction in milk prices. That tends to hurt us more than it does Fresno County. Monterey County is still struggling with accounting for some of the problems they had this year with the leafy green vegetables and so forth. So in talking to both of those ag commissioners, we all suspect that Tulare County will remain in second place nationwide. Our average rate of growth for the last 10 years, I do this every year, it's like just a sliding average rate. And you can see there's a trend line there, but this reduction brought it to about 4%. The last couple of years, it's been 5 and 6% average for the 10-year period. Here are the top 5 commodities. We do this every year. Milk is always number 1. It's going to be number 1 for most of the time. In spite of the reduction that I'm going to talk about in more detail in a little bit, you see that milk is still a $1 billion commodity, $1,179,394,000. That's significant because, as I've said before, and I think it's still true, I know of no other commodity, single commodity, in any county in California that's worth over $1 billion. That's billion with a B. And I think it's appropriate, since there's been a lot of talk about dairies, to emphasize how important that is to us. We increase and decrease, live and die, survive and do well, based on the strength of our agribusiness, and that's driven largely by the dairy business. If you add up all of the things that go along with dairies, not just the value of milk, but the value of the cattle and calves associated with them, the feed products, all of those things, trucking, the turnover in the economy, we do that once in a while and just calculate what we think that's likely to be, and you get a number that's over $7 billion in total contribution. That's huge. That's huge. Anyway, back to the top 5. The top 5 are the same that they've been for several years. Milk and milk products in first place. Oranges strongly in second place. And I want to emphasize right now that, the navel crop spans a couple of years. So the navels that we're talking about now are the 05-06 navels. You don't see the effects of the current freeze in this year's crop report. I want to make that really clear. Cattle and calves are strongly in third, and then grapes, of course, another top 5 crop. And alfalfa hay goes right along with us being a big player in the dairy business. So those are feed crops for the dairy business. But that's been fairly stable now for quite some time. I like to just throw this slide on the slide that we're looking at now, some of the other $1 million commodities, and just kind of give you a flavor for what some of them are. Well, I'm proud to tell you that Tulare County has 46 commodities in what we call the $1 Million Club, commodities that are worth $1 million or more. I'm sad to tell you that this year, only 14 of those $1 million commodities increased in value. But there are a couple of things worth noting. One of the highlights is blueberries. Look at blueberries down there in number 26. They didn't even appear in this list before. And I think it's appropriate to mention this time that the reason that blueberries are becoming a success story in Tulare County is largely due to the work of Manuel Jimenez. He works for Jim Sullins in the University of California Cooperative Extension Service. He's the advisor that's kind of, pioneered the idea, the notion that you can grow blueberries and grow them successfully here. So that's a success story that I think is worth pointing out. Something unusual. It's something that we've seen in the crop report this year that we didn't see before. And then another noteworthy one, although not nearly as positive, is olives. Olives fell from position number 18 to position number 30, and I would just tell you the sad truth that the future is not very bright for olives in Tulare County. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we get on through the rest of this presentation. Those of you that have heard me do this several times know that my predecessor used to call these the winners and losers, and I'm trying to be more politically correct, so I call them crops with the greatest gains and crops with the greatest decreases. But here's some of the bright spots, the commodities that did well. Nursery plants. We've actually produced more, and they brought a higher average price last year than they did in 2005. And what that really reflects is the success and the increase in capacity of some very large nurseries, you know who they are, that have moved here into Tulare County and are expanding their operations. Pollination, that's an odd one. The apiary industry, beekeeping, that's a really volatile segment of the industry, and it's real common for I almost think of bees like bees as an alternate bearing sort of crop. They're not, but they tend to fluctuate wildly every year. And for example, we needed about 22% more colonies for pollination last year than we did in 2005. And the cost for those colonies has increased dramatically, and it's increased even more this year. You've all read about challenges in the bee industry with colony collapse and some of the diseases and so forth. And what that means is it's a little harder to get bees. You have to bring them from more different places. And the cost of doing that is another of the inputs for those crops that require pollination. But to the bee industry, it means that they've had a very strong increase. Prunes are sort of an odd commodity, if you like, to see up there. Most of our prunes are, French prunes that are sold for fresh, but we have some plums that are dried and sold as prunes. What that really reflects is just a dramatic difference between 2005, which was a horrible year for that commodity, and 2006, which was a good year for that commodity. So when you contrast the year before, which was catastrophic, and the year after, which is very good, you get those dramatic swings like that. It actually reflects how horrible 2005 was. Lemons up somewhat, not a lot, but somewhat. Acreage okay. They actually went up by quite a bit percentage-wise, even though the price per ton was a little bit lower last year. And then wheat appears on here. Most of that's an increase in the number of acres that were planted of wheat. I'm going to talk about some of the environmental factors here in just a second.
Gary, excuse me, does that reflect partly on, I noticed quite a dramatic drop in cotton production. Is some of that cotton ground going to wheat ground now?
Yeah, some of it is. And one of the, in fact, see, I'm going to see my cotton thing here, man. That was exactly my line. But you're exactly correct. I'll jump to that one. Cotton, you remember cotton was king. Cotton was a top 5 crop for a long time. And when I first started doing this, we used to tell everybody, they'd say, how many acres of cotton you grow in Tulare County? And just a few years ago, I'd say, well, it's around 140,000, give or take. That acreage has plummeted recently. I mean, we're a fraction of that now. And most of that's due to things like, foreign competition. But this year, one of the things that characterizes 2005 is we had some real challenges. We had a freeze in February, a late season freeze. It wasn't anything like what I call the catastrophic freezes, but we had one. And it's hard for a lot of us to remember, but in May we had a period of about 5 days of really high temperatures that really affected a lot of these crops. Then we had a cool, wet spring that kept people from planting cotton, and because of that, many of them decided, well, it's so late in the year, I may or may not make much money doing that, so I'll plant something else, like corn, for example, feed crop for dairy animals. So a lot of people made that switch. I'll back up to milk. Milk prices last year, and this is the big story here. Milk prices were lowered by over $2 per hundredweight. That's a huge price drop. Now, it's true that milk has had a couple of very good years prior to this. Production was somewhat lower. You all remember in July we had the kind of heat wave that I haven't seen in my 60 years here. It's common for us to be hot in the summer, but it's not common to have temperatures of 113 or even 116. Which the animals just couldn't take. Now, there was a small drop in production, but it's actually somewhat reflected in this crop report. A small drop in production means a big reduction in value. So you can see milk alone, manufacturing and marketing milk together, dropped by 296, almost $297 million. That's huge. Milk's always going to be the biggest gainer or the biggest loser because it's such a huge commodity. Grapes, some varieties had very light crops, and some of the bearing acreage fell. We actually lost 15% of our bearing acreage, and you've seen that. You've seen vineyards that have been pushed out over time as some varieties lose their popularity. Pistachios, that's a little surprise. Nuts generally have done fairly well in the last several years, but their yield dropped by 14%, and most of that's probably because of the weather. Olives we talked about earlier. Bill Appleby, who many of you know, described it as the perfect storm of weather problems for olives. I mentioned the late frost, extended spring rains, the heat wave in the summer. The drop in total production for olives was 81% drop. A lot of people who grow olives didn't bother to harvest them. They weren't worth picking. That's a sad story. And another factor in the olive business is the real market is for things like pizzas and sandwiches and so forth. And producers or people who make those things can buy olives produced elsewhere cheaper than they can buy them from here. So the future doesn't look very good for olives. Cotton we've already talked about. And I talked about sort of the other environmental factors.
If I can, Mr. Chair, on the olives, seems like I see olives being taken out. I see I see orchards being wiped out and replaced with something else. Does that account for that as well?
Absolutely.
Just between here and Porterville, I think I've seen 3 pretty good-sized ones taken out of production.
Yeah, they've had so many really poor years lately that it's not worth keeping them in production. We're going to see that like I say, the future does not look very good for that particular commodity. Talked about some other things here, export destinations. These are the big 10 of the exports. That's one of the bright spots. We actually shipped to 75 different export destinations. It's on page 14 of your crop report. Exported fruit typically it's the best quality, typically brings the best price. Korea, for example, has overtaken Japan and has for the last few years as our #1 destination. We had some struggles to get oranges into Korea, and the industry has really stepped up to the plate, and so for the last couple of years now we've been able to ship our oranges to Korea. That's been a very successful program. So Korea is absolutely the leading destination for citrus. We ship a lot of nuts, a lot of kiwi fruit to there. While I'm talking about kiwi fruit too, let me mention, I said kiwi to a grower one time, and he reminded me that kiwis are people from New Zealand. Kiwi fruit is this thing that you grow, so kiwi fruit. Japan is still a big destination. You see Mexico, Taiwan, and so forth up there. But as I said, we shipped actually to 75 different countries last year. That number's been as high as 90. So exports are a strong point for Tulare County.
Before you leave that, Gary, I was just curious about People's Republic of China. Because I know for a long time we actually had trouble directly going there. We kind of did but didn't by going through other places like Hong Kong and so forth. Is that right?
That's exactly correct.
But now we can report that we're going directly to the People's Republic? Or?
Yeah, they have, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It used to go to China, you'd see things from Tulare County, even though you couldn't legally ship them there, but they would apparently make some sort of circuitous route and so forth and end up on the store shelves. China has actually come around and has developed protocols, phytosanitary protocols they call them, which is plant cleanliness, and our people do the inspections that allow you to ship those commodities. But they take now citrus, nuts, and grapes directly from Tulare County. So that's an opening market, and as the infrastructure and so forth expands there, that's likely to be an increasing influence in where we ship our commodities.
And that was really my point of my question. It seems like there'd be tremendous potential there.
Okay, this slide, I like to just throw it up because I was asked by the USDA one time if we did a lot of export inspections, and I said, yeah, I think so. What's a lot? And they said, I don't know, do you do 500 or 1,000? I said, we do 23,000 a year. So exports are huge in Tulare County. They're absolutely huge. Our people, that's one of the things that occupies the overwhelming portion of our time. And you can get kind of a feel for how that's gone. There was a dramatic increase after about 1990. And you've seen the last several years, look, since 2001, we've been up over 20,000. I think the most recent number was over 23,000 export inspections that we do. And what that is, that attests to how much foreign customers have come to appreciate the kind of products that we grow here. I think that's something we need to all be proud of. It's like everything else, a two-headed sword. export markets are great. Global trade means that you have to compete for shelf space with products from foreign countries, and it also increases sort of the pest pressure here as commodities move back and forth between different countries. But exports are a bright spot for Tulare. And then this is just a summary by the different categories. It's standard for fruits and nuts to be the leading category. Once in a while, livestock products can take that place. Those two commodities represent the bulk of our crop report. Without going into a lot of detail, I will just tell you that of all these categories, only nursery and apiary experienced increases in 2005. So I would characterize 2005 as a very challenging year. We've had anything you can imagine, from a small freeze to an early heat wave to a cool, wet spring to a record hot summer. And in spite of all those challenges, we continue to be one of the leaders in the nation for agricultural commodities. So with that concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has, if you have any.
You know, as Supervisor Worthy mentioned about China, when I was in China, the Chinese people, what they really want from the United States agriculturally is milk. And that was expressed by many of the citizens there. They were very interested in our dairy products. So I don't know how long it's going to take us to break into that market because of the infrastructure problem. Comments? I have additional comment. I was asked yesterday why the decreases in some crops like citrus. If you notice that our production was down in a lot of the commodities and the other reductions were sometimes related to price.
Yeah, I've heard it described as sort of just a combination of almost all of the weather factors you can imagine your CAO is being funny. But a combination of virtually every adverse weather factor that you can imagine. And so the good thing here is we grow enough different commodities that fortunately when we have a lot of them that do poorly, we have some that do well. And so we're blessed by that. Imagine if we had all our eggs in one basket, to use an ag analogy.
One question, Gary, I think I know the answer, but I'm looking at raisin varieties. You know, being from Raised Land USA, I need to ask about that. And under harvested acreage, we showed in 05, 25,000 acres, and then this year we had 20,000 acres. Looking at the plantings, it showed raisins were 21, almost 22 total acreage. So that reflects then that's the difference you're talking about in terms of thousands of acres literally being uprooted.
What that really is, in Tulare, Thompson seedless is a raisin variety. So we report it as a raisin variety, even though you and I eat Thompson seedless grapes fresh. It's actually my favorite grape. But that variety has fallen out of favor largely, and so many of the Thompson seedless acreage, much of the Thompson seedless acreage has been pushed out in favor of either other varieties or some other crop. So some of the vineyards that you see that are being removed are Thompson seedless variety, which is reported, even though we eat it fresh, it's a raisin grape variety.
Right. And I would point out, too, that many of these are probably vineyards that might be 100 years old. Or, I mean, that's a variety which people have planted. There's one right next to my house. They're over 100 years old. And there is a life expectancy to everything, so you do get some reductions in productivity. So.
Well, your board has always been extremely strong supporters of agribusiness in Tulare County, and of our department, too. And it's always a good time to say thank you for all that support. It's very much appreciated, not just by us, but by the people who farm and do business in the county.
Gary, are we still seeing the decline of Valencia oranges? Or it's
kind of slowed down somewhat. There is a little bit of a decline, and there was a big push a few years ago to remove a lot of that acreage, and especially if you were to go through Ventura County, you'd see enormous acreage pushed out over there. But then, too, being in the citrus business, that a lot of people who still have Valencias here, some of them removed them during that period of time. But some people actually sort of have the strategy that I'll hang on to them, and if enough of them are pushed out, then the acreage that I have will become more valuable. And so we're seeing a slowdown in that amount of Valencia acreage that's removed.
One last question, Mr. Chairman, if I might. We talk about crop values, but I'm always curious about harvested or acreage, and do we see there in terms of trend?
You know, I get asked that a lot because statewide you hear about we're losing ag land, we're losing ag land, and it's hard to show that in our crop report. Well, the reason for that is as we lose what you think of as the traditional super high value cropland, think of the walnut acreage that you see that's pushed out and then houses are built there. Typically those are done around the major population centers, and that's some very good agricultural land. That it's true we're losing that. But it's also true that as that's going on, we have people that will incorporate steer manure and so forth into soils that have traditionally not been farmed. We've seen the expansion of some dairy cropland out into what you and I would call the alkali flats, and some of that has traditionally not been thought of as farmland becomes farmland. Now the quality is not as good, but we've been through this exercise now several times where we get planters and so forth around the table and we go, well, we lost this and we lost this and we lost this, but we gained this. So the true statement in Tulare County, it's true that the very best cropland is being lost over time, but it's equally true that our overall ag land fluctuates by about plus or minus 30,000 acres, but tends to remain on balance relatively constant. So it's true that ag land is being lost throughout the state. It's less true in California because of that factor that I just mentioned. The old alkali flats are becoming farmland.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I'm not trying to be funny when I ask you this question, Gary. Because I thought that it wasn't politically correct to call things prunes anymore. Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they had to be dried plums, so
I'm okay. Many of ours are actually a variety that's called French prune. It's actually, and we eat it fresh. You know, go figure. But okay.
No, I mean, I didn't know.
In the prune business, it is really true. They call them dried plums because it's real popular to eat different kinds of dried fruit, you know, and you and I think of prunes probably in a different context, you know.
Well, that's why I thought it was, at first I thought it was a marketing thing, but then I don't know, I just noticed that. But
Most of the ones in our crop report are actually a variety called French prune. Thanks.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Only that I didn't see houses on the crop report taking prices on
And I
those.
would entertain a motion to accept the report.
Oh, I would love to move that we do that. So moved.
Second?
Cast your vote. You have unanimous acceptance of the County Ag Commissioner's report. Public comments? Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address the board on items under our preview but not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Supervisor matters. Supervisor Ennis?
Well, I just like to say I had an opportunity to go up and testify on Senator Cogdale's bill for Temperance Flat, and watched it go down. But I think we will continue to work on this and continue to battle, and I think that hopefully we can get this on the ballot in 2008. That's what we're shooting for.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This Friday, we will have a meeting of the California Partnership. It will be held in Kern County. As you know, we move those around. There will be reports on some committee work. The grant funding announcements have been made, but we'll get further detailed on, you know, what's been granted to who. So I look forward to an interesting meeting. Thursday, Executive Committee will be interviewing all day for a new executive director. Don't know how successful that will be, but that is up and coming. I spent the day in Sacramento, well, part of the day yesterday in Sacramento yesterday, on items of interest to the county. I don't have a report out on that meeting yet. The governor sends his best.
Well, two things. I'd like to publicly recognize and thank Mr. Henry Hash, RMA Director, for taking care of a couple of items a week ago or so ago. Supervisor Ennis and myself received calls about Bear Creek Road, which leads up to Sicon. I guess we have 18,000 kids that travel up there each year, and there was some, I guess, repair work needed to be done. Mr. Hash sent a road crew up inspect, and some repairs were or are being made here in the relatively near future. So I want to thank Mr. Hatch for jumping on that so quickly. The safety of this county, and actually several children throughout the state attend that facility, is much appreciated. So appreciate, Henry, you moving on that so quickly because of the safety issues for the buses going up there. And then also I appreciate receiving the updates on the progress to move in our folks out of the 4-story where the air conditioning has not worked for quite some time, and get those people moved over into a new facility on South Community Boulevard. I appreciate those updates. They seem to be coming in every week, and it looks like progress is being made to where we should have those folks out of that building before it gets too hot this year. So those won't be issues. So thank you for your work on those areas. It's been important to me to get those people out of those working conditions that I don't think are good working conditions. Thank you.
Supervisor Cox, did you turn 50 or something?
I turned 50. I joined the 50 club.
So are we going to see a more kinder, gentler?
No.
Honey, he's still just a kid. He's still just a kid.
I don't know what. We can always hope.
Kindly, gentler, no.
More engaged?
More tired, yes.
Okay.
Supervisor Worthy.
Mr. Chairman, first I would like to say thanks for the joint meeting we had last week with the Retirement Board. I thought it was quite informative. One thing I thought we spent quite a bit of time talking about the SRBR account, and I forget what those initials stand for, but essentially it's
supplemental benefits.
It's supplemental benefits and it's excess earnings that are positioned in a particular place for active retirees and future retirees. One of the concerns that I had as I looked at, we also received a supplemental report talking about how that has grown in the last 5 years by about $10 million, is that while we have gone from being 100%, over 100% funded, and we're now at 92% funded in terms of our overall county responsibility to retirees, we are still finding money going into the SRBR account. In other words, I find it odd that we are underfunded and yet we still have supplemental or excess earnings that go into this account. Once they go into that account, half of that money we get back, or can get back, I should say the contributors, which would be the county and the employees, but the other half is in that account and is lost forever to us as a county. And so I would like us to look at the formula, because I really have a philosophical problem with the idea that we'll ever have excess earnings as long as we're not 100% funded. Seems to me like that doesn't quite equate logically. So I'd like us to kind of take a look at that and see if maybe that formula could be examined. The last thing was yesterday was the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Governing Board meeting, where we had our much heralded 8-hour ozone plan. It was a lengthy meeting. We had 94 different individuals testify. We went from 11 o'clock. The meeting started at 9, but we actually started a public hearing on this matter at 11 o'clock. We finished up about 7 o'clock last night. I think it was. I thought it was a good result. 9-2 was the vote to approve the plan. What gave it some controversy was that we had been designated as a severe non-attainment in ozone, which gave us a very short time frame to come into compliance, and our staff, looking at all the various options and the current technology that's available to us, deemed that we needed to be bumped up to a severe status, which gives us more time to come into compliance. Now, to many people, they felt that was a delay. There is no delay. The air quality is improving. In fact, I thought one of the slides presented by, or one of the things presented by our staff was quite informative. If you were to go back 25 years in time, the air quality in the last 25 years has improved 80%. And that's a remarkable improvement by anyone's standard. But nobody knows that because the public always hears about how bad our air quality is. And part of that is because of changing standards, and the standards get more stringent. we find that, guess what, we're out of compliance, and we're out of compliance big time. But the fact of the matter is, the air quality has made a significant improvement and will continue to improve. But the difficulty is, as anybody knows, when you've got 80% of the job done, trying to get that last 20% is the most difficult and the most expensive to achieve. So we even did an analysis that if we had unconstrained, unlimited resources to replace all of the engines and all the trucks and all the cars, we still would be short. So what we really have to look forward is we need newer technologies that are even not yet developed in order to achieve this. Well, obviously you can't put that into a plan unless you go to the severest. The only time it's called a black box. In a severe plan, you can say, we're going to say in a black box, we're looking forward to future improvements that will be available through newer technologies that don't exist today, and we're putting X number of tons of pollutant in that black box in order to achieve that. We can only do that with that extreme attainment location. So that's what the board did yesterday, and it's not because the board is delaying. The board is very aggressive. Our air district has made great improvements. Supervisor Sheet and I met last Friday with Del Monte Cannery in Kingsburg. They're going to be spending $1 million this summer to upgrade their boiler to, again, all based upon air quality. The whole reason they're replacing that boiler is for air quality. And the interesting thing we pointed out was for $1 million investment, the benefit of air quality that they will get out of that $1 million investment will be undone by one truck coming from Mexico and traveling through the valley in terms of the pollutants that truck will put out. But that shows you the kinds of, investment made by businesses in the valley to try to come into compliance with air quality. 80% of our problem is mobile sources, and the air district only has direct control over stationary sources. So we're really looking to the state ARB, federal EPA, and the improvements are going to come in fuel and engine technology and so forth to get us to the air that we are required to get to. So it was a very long meeting, a lot of unhappy people, but at the end of the day, the board did what they needed to do, and I think they made the right decision. So that's my report, and I'm sticking to it.
Supervisor Conway.
No, this happens every time something you guys say puts something else on my mind. And Supervisor Worthy, I appreciate the comments on the meeting we had with the retirement board. It's something I think we should do more often. Last Thursday, there was a meeting of the Governor's Pension Benefits Commission in Orange County, and it's interesting from my perspective, serving on that commission as I compare what we have and how we do it here in Tulare County. A lot of the testimony was from folks in another 37 Act retirement program, but certainly reports and information about PERS and STIRS and all of the retirement systems that are out there, trying to stay in compliance with the GASB rules, government agency standards boards, that is forcing public agencies to make public actually the debt that they have, if you will, going forward. And I know you all see on a daily basis, as I do, various headlines from counties around the state, and not a day goes by that there isn't someone in the news with their pension benefits. So I think it is important that we stay, as the plan sponsors, stay in good contact with our retirement board, so that we have as plan sponsors have an understanding of how that all works, but also so that we can be part of the planning going forward, so that we do stay funded. That's all. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't stretch.
Oh, that's fine. Looking at the clock, we're doing very well today. Last week, I'd like to publicly acknowledge that Southern Cal Edison donated $75,000 for freeze relief to United Way, and I'd like to thank them for that contribution. This Thursday, I will be testifying in front of the Senate Subcommittee on Water and Natural Resources on the San Joaquin River Settlement. And while I'm back there, we'll be talking about the real crime measure, trying to extend funding for an additional year, and obviously freeze relief. Freeze relief right now has been tied up in the Iraqi war appropriations bill, and apparently the president will veto it, and it'll probably set back our freeze relief at least another 30 days. So hopefully we can lobby to get some movement from the majority party to remove that clause to where we can get relief for our residents in Tulare County. And other than that, that's all I have to report on. Council, do we have need for closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have need for closed sessions. They're listed as items A through I on your agenda. We will be canceling items E and F, though. There will be no reports out.
Thank you. Thank you for your attendance.